In Gaul, during the 1st century, a child was born that would grow up to be a deadly assassin. Locusta was born a peasant and grew up in the Alps of present-day France. While growing up, Locusta would have learned how to live off the land, and probably would have inherited the knowledge of hemlock from her Gaelic barbarian ancestors. It would be this wisdom that would gain her wealth, powerful friends, and ultimately her execution. Locusta moved to Rome in the mid-1st century CE. She quickly realized that there was profit in her deadly knowledge. It was common for ambitious Romans to expedite the deaths of their rivals or wealthy relatives. It was important for these deaths to look as natural as possible, and Locusta knew just the poisons to accomplish this. Locusta quickly earned a reputation as a skillful poisoner, and although she was often arrested for her work, she had made some very powerful friends who were able to get her out of trouble. In 54 CE, Locusta was in prison when she was called upon by the Empress Agrippina the Younger. Agrippina was the 4th wife of the then Emperor Claudius, and had plans on making her son Nero the new emperor. The 64-year-old emperor was no fool, and had food tasters for each of his meals. Locusta prepared a poison for Agrippina, and Agrippina made her move one evening when Claudius's closest aide was sick. She bribed the food tester Halotus into giving the emperor poisoned mushrooms. Claudius, unaware of the betrayal, ate the mushrooms and was soon feeling the effects of the poison. The emperor was doubled over with stomach pains, and began gasping for air. At the time, the remedy for these adverse effects on a person was to put a feather down the person's throat to induce vomiting. Unfortunately for Claudius, the feather was also poisoned. Shortly after Claudius was dead and Nero was the emperor, Agrippina swiftly gave up Locusta and had her arrested. Locusta was sentenced to death by bludgeoning, but luckily for Locusta, Nero had a job for her. Nero was not the son of Claudius, but his stepbrother Britannicus was. This meant that Nero had a rival in the 14-year-old Britannicus, and had plans to remove Britannicus's claim to the throne. When Nero freed Locusta from prison, he also gave her land, money, and declared that she was absolved of her crimes that she had committed and will ever commit. In turn, Locusta was to poison Britannicus. Like his father before him, Britannicus also had food testers. Locusta came up with a cunning plan to get around the tasters without having to bribe them. The poisoning would take place during a family dinner. The wine was poured into cups, and the food tasters did their jobs and handed the cups to the respective family members. After Britannicus took a sip of his wine, he handed it back to his tester and asked for it to be diluted further. The taster did not test the water that he poured into Britannicus's wine, and that is where Locusta had slipped the poison. The young heir fell into convulsions. Nero refused any assistance to the dying boy and claimed that Britannicus suffered from epilepsy. It was very likely that the others in attendance knew what was happening to Britannicus, but none were brazen enough to do anything to help the dying boy. Eventually, Nero called for Britannicus's removal from the dinner, and the boy died that same night. Locusta saw a boom in business after that. She was even able to open a school to share her deadly knowledge of botany. She was able to operate for 14 years under the rule of Nero without repercussions. But her business would not last. Eventually, the Roman Senate became bold enough to condemn Nero to death. Locusta crafted a poison kit for Nero, but he lost it and had to end himself with his own dagger. Knowing that the Senate would probably be after her shortly, Locusta tried to lay low. However, she was caught later that year and was sentenced to death. This is where you probably expect me to tell you that she was raped to death by a giraffe. She wasn't. The Romans were a brutal people, but that story is false. This alleged form of execution shows up in the first edition of the Encyclopedia of Serial Killers by Michael Newton. He cites a story told by Apelles, called The Golden Ass, that claims a woman was raped to death by a giraffe. It was a fictional story. Apelles never claimed it was Locusta, and furthermore, the animal was allegedly a donkey and not a giraffe. This alleged execution of Locusta only appears in the first edition of the Encyclopedia of Serial Killers, and did not appear in the second or any other reprinting of the book. The only actual clue as to the way Locusta was executed comes from Cassius Dio, who states, "In the case, however, of Helios, Narcissus, Petrobius, Locusta, the sorceress, and others of the scum that had come to the surface in Nero's day, Galba ordered them to be led in chains throughout the whole city, and then to be executed." Thank you for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like. If you want more content like this, check out my other videos and subscribe to my channel. I release videos every week. If you already are subscribed, thank you for your support. If you want to follow me on social media, the links are in the description. Sleep tight, friends.